You have been carrying a quiet certainty that does not match the room around you, and that is not confusion. It is the first sign that something deeper has already been confirmed in you. Tonight the message reaches you with the weight of a sealed instruction, and you do not need to prove that you feel it in order for it to be real. You have been acting as if the delay around you is a verdict, but the delay has been a witness. It has been showing what can no longer lead you. When you hear this, stay with it, because this is not a distant word for someone else. It is the kind of word that arrives close enough to disturb the quiet you settled for, and it begins by naming the place where your soul has been standing between old movement and a new obedience. There are moments when your chest tightens, while everything on the outside still looks ordinary. The kitchen light is on, the phone is silent, the chair is where it always was, and yet your breathing feels shorter than it should. You pick up the same cup, look at the same wall, and still sense that you no longer belong to the older rhythm of your days. That inner pressure is not random. It is the body noticing what the mind has not finished admitting. You have been carrying more than fatigue, and you know it when your shoulders drop only after no one is watching. Maybe that is why even simple tasks have felt heavy, as if the air itself had become a little less forgiving. The tears do not always come, but the ache remains. You have not been broken beyond repair. You have been becoming too awake to live by what once felt normal. What is happening to you is not a mistake, and it is not a hidden punishment. It is a confirmation that the path before you is narrowing for a reason, and what cannot continue is being exposed. You may be recognizing signs that used to pass unnoticed because your spirit is no longer agreeing with the same old noise. You may be seeing how certain doors stay quiet, how certain conversations drain you, how certain urgencies do not carry peace. That is not failure. That is discernment taking shape. By the end of this message, you will recognize the difference between pressure and instruction, between exhaustion and redirection, between what attention you need to prepare now. I put together an exclusive resource for those who feel set apart for something greater, but live surrounded by noise, distractions, and mental overload. This is a 30-day journey that will transform your life. A guided path to armor your mind and prepare for what's coming with daily practices of focus, boundaries, and discipline. Stop negotiating with the noise. Learn to spot distractions before they control you, and strengthen your mind. Also available in an immersive audio version. Over 10 Zuru readers have already transformed their lives through the 30-day journey. Thousands of people have already started this transformation. People like you who are tired of living in the fog. Ordinary people who decided to stop accepting mental chaos. Take advantage of this limited time offer only this month. Access your link just below in the pinned comment. It repeats and what is being returned to you. You will also see why the silence around you has been speaking more clearly than the voices around you, and you will understand why the call has not disappeared, only deepened. Think of the last ordinary place where you sat in silence and felt the room press against your thoughts. It may have been your bed at night, the edge of a chair after work, or the driver's seat while the world moved past the window. The same lamp, the same floor, the same small object in your hand, and still the atmosphere felt different. You were not imagining that shift. You were noticing the loss of innocence in the old pattern. The body knows when a season has turned before language catches up. Your hands become restless, your throat tightens, your eyes stay open longer than they should. Then the inner sentence comes, quiet and blunt. This cannot keep carrying me. That sentence is not rebellion. It is the beginning of honesty. And honesty is often where obedience starts before it has a name. You are not too sensitive, and you are not difficult to please. You are being formed into someone who feels what others can ignore, and that is responsibility, not superiority. There is a reason ordinary noise has started to feel expensive to your soul. The chosen life is not glamorous, it is precise. It notices what drains and what restores, what sounds loud and what is truly alive. A room can be full and still feel empty to you, because your spirit has stopped calling stimulation by the name of peace. That does not make you strange. It makes you accountable to what has been shown. Sometimes you have wondered why you cannot just settle for less. The answer is not pride. The answer is that something in you has already been marked for a narrower road. The first opposition is rarely dramatic. It arrives as distraction disguised as normal life, as one more message, one more task, one more reason to postpone what you already know. The old pull is patient because it knows how to look harmless. It does not always attack your faith. It can simply scatter your attention until obedience feels abstract. You start answering everyone else before you answer the quietest thing in you. Then the day fills with lesser urgencies, and the true one waits at the edge of your mind like a locked door. That is how delay becomes a habit. It is not always fear in its loudest form. Sometimes it is the small, repeated surrender to noise. What you call being busy may be the very place where your clarity has been buried. There is a biblical echo in this, and you feel it because your life knows the language of waiting. Israel knew what it was to stand between release and the next instruction, with a path opening only after trust had already been tested. The point was never that the people were abandoned in the middle. The point was that movement came after recognition, not before it. Your own life has carried that same shape in quieter ways. You have watched things hold still until your spirit stopped bargaining with them. You have seen how the door that matters rarely opens for a rushed heart. It opens when the listener is willing to hear what the silence has been guarding. That is why the echo matters. It tells you that your delay is not proof of rejection. If you keep pretending nothing is changing, the cycle will keep asking for your strength without giving you peace. You will keep calling exhaustion a normal condition and confusion a temporary inconvenience. But the cost is real. Sensitivity that is ignored does not disappear. It hardens or turns inward. Then even good things begin to feel distant, because your inner life has been trained to stop trusting its own warning. The danger is not that you feel too much. The danger is that you stop believing the feeling has meaning. You have already seen what happens when you force yourself to remain where peace no longer lives. Something within you goes quiet in the wrong way, and once that quiet settles, it takes more than time to hear yourself again. What you are seeing now is not random, and the signs are not scattered by accident. They are gathering into a pattern that wants to be read with patience. If even one of those signs landed inside you, write 888 in the comments and come back to me. That number is not a spell. It is a simple sign of confirmation, a quiet way of saying that what has been shown is not imaginary. The act of writing it becomes a small agreement with truth. It marks the place where recognition stops floating and becomes your own. Come back to me after you write it, because the pattern is about to deepen, and you will need your attention whole. What has felt like pressure is beginning to reveal itself as direction, and the next part is where the root starts to show. The conflict is no longer only around you. It is inside the place where you decide whether to trust what you know. You have been carrying a tension between control and surrender, between being understood and being obedient. The outer signs are real, but the inner resistance is where the battle has taken shape. You keep trying to manage what is asking to be received. That is why peace has felt so fragile. When the heart tries to supervise what only faith can carry, it grows tired in places language cannot reach. The deeper question is not whether the message is clear. The deeper question is whether you will remain available to it once it asks something of you. And that question is already moving toward a threshold. The root is often a fear of obeying before you can see the outcome. You do not fear God in a shallow sense. You fear the loss of the old map. You fear what may happen if you stop explaining yourself and simply step where you are being led. That is a serious fear because it can hide inside wisdom, caution, and even humility. Yet the body knows when it is negotiating with hesitation instead of receiving direction. Your shoulders lift, your breath shortens, and the mind starts building arguments after the spirit has already recognized the way. This is not condemnation, it is exposure. What is being revealed is not your weakness alone, but the place where control has worn the mask of safety, and once it is named, it loses some of its power. Your mind has been trying to explain what your spirit already knows, and your body has been carrying the cost of the argument. That is why some days feel loud inside, even when nothing dramatic happens outside. You look at the same message twice. You reread the same line. You hear the same question in your head and still cannot settle. The body does not lie about tension, even when the mind gives it polite language. There is a difference between anxiety that multiplies and discernment that stays steady. One races, the other stays watchful. One makes everything urgent, the other makes the next step clear. You have felt both, and part of your wisdom is learning not to confuse them. The old habit says, overthink until you feel certain. The new path says, listen until peace becomes recognizable. There are also rooms and conversations that no longer fit the person you are becoming. Not because everyone around you is wrong, but because not every environment can hold a changing heart without resistance. You may leave a conversation feeling smaller than when you entered it, and that is data you can trust. You may notice that some people keep pulling you back into the old version of yourself because it makes them more comfortable. That is not always cruelty. Sometimes it is simply misalignment. The chosen path often becomes visible first through discomfort in places that once felt familiar. You do not need to accuse anyone to notice this. You only need to keep paying attention. What drains you without reason deserves examination, because not every open door is a door for you. There is a strategy in the pressure that has surrounded you. It keeps you tired enough to postpone, uncertain enough to second-guess, and busy enough to miss the still point. It turns direction into noise by surrounding it with smaller demands. It makes you think clarity should arrive with thunder when it often comes as a quiet insistence. You have already lived the pattern where one unnecessary obligation leads to another until your inner voice is buried under practical things. But the practical things are not always the problem. The problem is when they become a shelter for disobedience. The opposition wants your attention spread thin because a divided heart is easier to delay. Yet your spirit keeps returning to the same center. That return is not weakness. It is the beginning of release. There comes a point where you stop arguing with what has already been shown. You stop asking whether the sign was real, whether the pressure means something, whether the silence is just silence. You know. The only question left is whether you will live as if you know. That is the threshold. It is quiet, but it is exact. It does not require drama, only honesty. You may feel the old habit resisting at the edge of this sentence, trying to reframe surrender as loss. But surrender is not loss here. It's the first clean step into what has been waiting. And what has been waiting is not trying to trap you, it is trying to receive you. What has been hidden in all this is not just a problem, it is a pattern of covering that has served a purpose and is now being asked to open. Think of a lamp covered by a cloth in a dark room, not destroyed, only hidden from its own usefulness. That is the image that now explains so much of your life. You were not made smaller. You were kept covered until the right moment. The cloth was not your identity, it was a season of preservation. When the room was too rough, too noisy, too early, covering kept what was precious from being wasted. But covering is not the final state of a lamp. Light is not meant to stay under fabric forever, and the pressure you have felt is the moment when hidden light begins to press against what kept it quiet. That covering began long before this week, maybe long before you had words for what you were carrying. You learned to stay quiet when speaking too soon would have cost you peace. You learned to wait because waiting protected what was delicate. You learned to keep certain convictions tucked away because not every place could honor them. The body remembers those lessons. It still braces when exposure feels near. It still leans inward when life asks for too much too quickly. Yet the same covering that once protected you can become the thing you live under without noticing. That is why some of your tiredness has felt strangely familiar. It is the fatigue of holding something shut that is ready to breathe. The lamp is not dead. It has simply been waiting for a hand that knows when to uncover it. What tried to keep the lamp covered was not always obvious. Some of it came through fear of being seen too clearly. Some of it came through voices that preferred your usefulness over your fullness. Some of it came through your own habit of shrinking before you were asked to. You may have learned that being careful was safer than being visible. You may have learned that silence was less risky than revelation. Those lessons were not foolish in the moment, they were survival. But survival is not the same as calling. A covered lamp cannot judge the cloth by its softness. It can only feel the lack of its own reach. That is the tension you have lived in. Not darkness exactly, but contained light. And contained light always begins to ache for air. Now the image begins to move. The cloth is no longer only a cover, it is starting to lift at the edges. That does not mean everything opens at once. It means the first breath has entered the hidden place. You feel it in small ways, in the refusal to keep pretending, in the tiredness that no longer obeys old routines, in the sudden clarity that arrives after a long silence. The lamp does not need to shout. It only needs the space to be seen for what it is. You have already sensed that the old enclosure cannot remain the same. The covered thing is not being erased. It is being prepared to serve what it was meant for. And that is why the discomfort now feels so close to hope. Something is loosening, and you are not wrong to notice it. If this image has landed in you the way a key turns in a stuck lock, write Eu vejo isso in the comments and come back to me. Those words are not decoration. They are the recognition that the hidden thing is being named correctly. The lamp under cloth is your story learning to breathe. Type it and let the recognition settle where it belongs. When you return to me, do not return to the old confusion. Return with the part of you that knows what has been exposed. There is a reason the covered thing is now breathing, and the reason matters. It means the moment of concealment is giving way to the moment of stewardship. And stewardship is where return becomes practical. Return is not performance, and it is not pretending you were never affected. It is bringing your life back into alignment with what peace already testified to. The lamp does not need applause to shine. It needs the right place, the right covering removed, the right hand steady enough to set it where it belongs. You may have spent too long trying to impress what was never meant to define you. Now the direction is simpler. Return to the place where your soul becomes clear again. Return to the habit of listening before reacting. Return to the quiet where the body settles and the mind stops chasing. This is not passive. It is precise. The return is how the lamp is no longer a secret to itself. One practice is to begin your morning with a threshold pause before you reach for anything else. Sit for a brief moment, let your hands rest, and name one thing you already know is true. This is not a ritual for appearance. It is a way of letting your first motion belong to clarity instead of noise. When you do it, the body notices the difference. Your breath slows, your shoulders drop, and the day no longer begins by dragging you. The lamp is steadied before the room gets loud. That small pause can change the shape of an entire morning. It teaches your inner life not to leave itself behind at the door. And what is steadied early is less easily scattered later. Another practice is to keep a written record of what strengthens peace and what weakens it, not as a report for anyone else, but as a quiet way of honoring the difference your spirit already feels. Write the moments when your chest opens. Write the moments when it tightens. Write the rooms, the conversations, the habits, the words, the silences. Over time, you will see the pattern more clearly than memory alone can carry it. The lamp under cloth does not guess where the air is thin. It learns, and what it learns becomes discernment you can trust. This is how return becomes steady rather than emotional. You are not chasing a feeling. You are learning the shape of what restores you. Protection may be appearing in the limits you did not choose. A closed door can keep you from spending light where it would be wasted. A delayed answer can keep your heart from rushing into what was not ready. A pause can guard you from calling pressure by a holy name. These limits are not always comfortable, but they can be merciful. The lamp that is being uncovered still needs protection from reckless handling. Not every invitation deserves your yes. Not every urgency deserves your speed. Sometimes the most loving restraint is the one that keeps you from scattering your fire. And when you understand that, you stop resenting the border that kept you safe. What you are being asked to do now is not to perform a new identity, but to steward the one that has already been revealed. That means stopping the old habit of fleeing from clarity when it gets expensive. It means releasing explanations that keep you tied to people who only understand the version of you that was covered. It means obeying quietly when the instruction is simple and clear. The lamp does not argue with the hand that uncovers it. It gives light. You have reached the point where your life becomes less about convincing and more about aligning. That is a serious kind of peace. It is also a serious kind of responsibility. The light that returns to you asks to be handled well. If what is being named here feels true, let your light be your amen without words, not as a metric, as a quiet agreement that the lamp under cloth has been recognized correctly. The action is small, but the meaning is not small. It says that what was hidden has been witnessed and received. Let that be enough for this moment, and then come back to me. The gesture is not the goal. It is the pause where your body says yes before the mind has finished explaining. And yes, even silent agreement can be part of obedience. From there, the path keeps opening. There is someone whose face has already come to mind while you are hearing this. It may be someone quietly tired, someone secretly seeking, someone carrying a posture nobody sees, or someone who looks strong while praying without words. The lamp under cloth is not only your story, it is theirs too. When a face rises in your mind like that, do not dismiss it. This message may be for delivery, not decoration. Send it to them as someone came to mind, not as a recommendation or a correction, but as care. A lamp that has been hidden long enough can help another lamp survive the same night. That is what quiet faith often does. It passes along the light without making a performance of it, and the right person will know why it came. There is also a deeper solidarity here, because you are not the only one being uncovered. Across other rooms, other mornings, and other private silences, people are receiving the same quiet recognition. They are not identical to you, but they are standing under the same patient light. They are learning that what felt like delay was protection, and what felt like covering was not erasure. That collective frame matters because it keeps you from thinking your story is isolated. The lamp under cloth has many places, many hands, many quiet returns. You are part of something real even when it is not loud. And the real thing does not need to announce itself to remain true. It simply keeps shining where it has been set. Before this closes, write Eu sou o escolhido in the comments, not as a wish, as confirmation. The words are not about superiority. They are about consent to what has already been confirmed in you. Type them slowly and let your fingers do what your spirit has been learning all along. This is the seal of agreement over the lamp that has been uncovered. It is the moment you stop speaking as if the hidden place is your permanent address. When you write it, you acknowledge that the light is yours to carry with humility and clarity. Come back to me after you write it, because the final turn is not about starting over. It is about living from what has already been made known. Now the whole journey is visible in one image. The lamp under cloth was never destroyed, only guarded, and the pressure you felt was the moment the cover no longer fit the season. The body knew it before the mind did, the chest that tightened, the shoulders that carried too much, the silence that felt heavy, all of it was speaking in the language of readiness. You were not losing yourself. You were being prepared to hold what is true without bending it back into old habits. The signs, the resistance, the delay, the return, all belonged to the same unfolding, and the unsettling part was never meant to be final. It was meant to lead you to honesty, and honesty is where the light becomes usable. That is why the message feels both tender and exact. You are being confirmed in what you already sensed. You are being remembered where you once felt unseen. You are not late, even if the room around you kept counting time by other clocks. You are not abandoned, even if the cloth stayed over the lamp longer than you expected. You are being returned to what was never destroyed, only hidden for a moment that now has ended. You are not called to force the light. You are called to carry it well. You are not asked to perform certainty. You are asked to live as one who has heard, and that hearing is becoming a quiet strength in you. Around the world, others are receiving this same recognition in their own way, in their own rooms, under their own coverings, and the work is more connected than it first appeared. Walk gently. Zapechacheno. Attention, you need to prepare now. I put together an exclusive resource for those who feel set apart for something greater, but live surrounded by noise, distractions, and mental overload. This is a 30-day journey that will transform your life. A guided path to armor your mind and prepare for what's coming with daily practices of focus, boundaries, and discipline. Stop negotiating with the noise. Learn to spot distractions before they control you, and strengthen your mind. Also available in an immersive audio version. Over 10 Zurzazuru readers have already transformed their lives through the 30-day journey. Thousands of people have already started this transformation. People like you who are tired of living in the fog. Ordinary people who decided to stop accepting mental chaos. Take advantage of this limited time offer only this month. Access your link just below in the pinned comment.